This is a Crypto Legends podcast.
Today's crypto legend, Graham Rochford from Archax, has had a front row seat of the flows of digital trading solutions for institutions while he was working for many years in the hedge fund world. He quickly recognized that exchanges for institutions to trade digital assets didn't pass the institutional grade test. And this is why he has decided to build Archax. Graham and his team have set the goal of building a credible bridge between the digital blockchain world and the traditional investment space. They have embraced building an institutional exchange the difficult way, but the right way. Archax are the first and only digital securities exchange regulated by the FCA in the UK, and also to build their whole proposition during a global pandemic. This crypto legend has had to battle through adversity and be brave to do things differently. Let's talk about it today. Cool. So, Graham, you started with over 2 decades working in the investment management industry, specifically managing hedge funds, working at Omni Partners and Caliburn Capital Partners. When did you start becoming aware that crypto was becoming an interest to institutions?
Sophie. Yeah, you're right. In about 2013, actually, my CTO came to me and spoke to me about Bitcoin, and I'd kind of noticed a distance from before, and he said, "Look, would you be interested in buying some?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And then at that point, you just become more aware, I think, of what's happening in the space. So over the next few years, kind of followed it from a distance, became a bit more aware of everything that was going on. And then in 2017, 2018, when there was the ICO boom, kind of realised that actually there was something there behind this, that it looked like it was here to stay. We went about looking to create a crypto hedge fund, but the infrastructure just wasn't ready to do things credibly. It was a real struggle to try and find the exchanges that you could trade on with all of the processes that we'd be used to. So at that point, we kind of had a little conversation and said to ourselves, "Look, institutions are coming. This is going to change everything. So why don't we go and build an exchange?"
Okay, so that's super interesting. So, like, you have been basically a firm believer in crypto since the early days, right?
Yeah, exactly. I guess it definitely always kind of interested in crypto, but then increasingly between 2013, 2017, 18, started to realise that there were probably more use cases for infrastructure, and then since then, really, my belief has only increased. I think it started out as that this looks like it might happen. Everyone's starting to talk about it, and between even over the last 4 years, every bank's gone from saying we're not convinced this would happen to in some cases, 2 that I've recently spoke to, having 100 people dedicated to digital. So I'm a big believer that every single asset in financial services is moving over. Insurance, mortgages, security, pretty much everything, I think, makes more sense with this technology.
And so, what do you think has been the reason why institutions have finally decided to move? What has been this tipping point that has made them, okay, there is no way back, we actually need to go for it?
Yeah, I think a number of things. I think client demand always helps. So when it's just a few people on the internet trading Bitcoin, it's hard for them to take notice, and then the number moves 1 billion, 2 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, up to where we are today. And whilst it might be volatile, people realise actually this doesn't look like it's going away. And then for all of the thousands of testing crypto projects there are out there, ones start to reveal themselves as being big industry players. And Ethereum, as an example, huge growth, loads of people building on it. The infrastructure is pretty phenomenal when you look at DeFi. Consider products like MetaMask, great adoption, really facilitating this new world of finance. And I think if you're sitting there in a bank, probably it started off with a few people on your team talking about trading crypto, and then suddenly everyone's trading it, everyone's making money out of it, and that's the start of everyone's journey, much like mine, really. And then when you start to learn more about it, you learn more about other projects, you start to see the extra use cases, and you start to realize that, this isn't just an internet money. This is a shift in all of technology.
It's exactly how I felt about it, actually. Like, it's just, when I just realized the infrastructure play, I was just like, but there is no way that's not the future. Why would it not be the future? And that I felt very much like this kind of eureka moment where you're just like, well, there has been this evolution when internet came in our lives, right? And it has been a revolution for us. But like technology needs to move forward, and like basically the propositions that are offered by blockchain and well, DeFi in general are really good solutions. And so like, why would it not be the future, And so
Yes,
I
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So like Archax has been a pioneer in institutional digital asset trading. Like on your communications on the website, you talk about Archax being institutional through. What have you identified from the option before Archax that were not institutional throughout?
Yeah, I guess it's it's a bit of a mindset. We mentioned earlier I was from a hedge fund background, and I'm used to getting large institutions coming in and asking you questions about every single piece of your process under scrutiny. So from a jurisdictional point of view, where are you based? Who are your shareholders? Who makes decisions? How do you invest client assets? How do you store client assets? What signatory processes do you have in place? What risk registers do you have? What risk framework? And then in the technology, how do you control entry? What's your disaster recovery plan? How do you set limits to people? How do you can make sure that no one's hacking into other accounts? Just all of these things, connectivity, data centers, all of these things that are that you need to put in place in the traditional world. And I think when you look over our journey over the last 4 years, there's no doubt some people are trying some new technology like cloud and DeFi and things which didn't exist before. But a lot of what people are realizing in crypto is that regulation's there for a reason. I mean, if you look at the number of companies having issues lately, we're finding that people were making large loans unsecured in ways that really never would happen in regulated businesses. So I think you will see a maturing of the industry really because of that.
Yeah, like I fully agree here. Like indeed, we have seen like regulators starting putting in place like new frameworks, right? MiCA being one of them, and like we see also the US moving, the UK moving. So like the world is going towards a regulation which is for the greater good of like the people, but like the company also in general. Something that is quite particular in your story, and you have been touching a bit about it, is that basically you have been kind of compliance first since the beginning, because you brought in a chief compliance officer, which is an ex-FCA employee, even before the platform was launched. Can you tell us a bit about your compliance journey?
Yeah, so I've been compliance officer for a lot of my career anyway. I was always looking to do things kind of the right way. And then we brought in a couple of people at the start, actually, one from a former large exchange in the UK and then one ex-FCA. And the view has always been, let's try and maintain our reputation, which has been frustrating at times over the last 4 years when people have been generating revenue, from doing all sorts of projects. We've just been trying to work out what the regs are and stay the right side of them. So I think we've done a good job of doing that. We had a really good relationship. We have a really good relationship with the FCA. We speak to people in government quite often. So we've spent a lot of time building a stable regulatory foundation that we're building on. And obviously it acts as a regulatory moat for us as well. And there's a lot of people in the space that have not gone down this pathway and they've kind of done everything they wanted to do rather than following the regulation. And I think they're going to struggle to expand their business models in the future because of those choices that they made.
Yeah, that's our view, actually, that like compliance needs to be first to actually enable to build a sustainable and scalable business. You have achieved quite a lot of first when it comes to compliance. So you were the first ever FCA regulated digital securities exchange, broker and custodian in the UK. You were also the first company to receive its FCA crypto asset registration and therefore becoming a fully compliant VASP, which is quite an achievement knowing that nothing is currently moving as fast. Can you tell us how you achieved that? Because you told us why, you told us how important you believe all those steps are for your company and your story. But how did you achieve those goals and milestones?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's at the highest level, it's just a matter of satisfying the regulatory requirements, and like there's a list of documents that you have to have: a risk register, a risk framework, um, documents about your controllers, bios of governance structures. Or like there's things that you need in place, whatever you're applying for. So on some measure, I think it's quite easy. These are the rules, and we need to follow them, and they need to be well thought through. So probably from myself and my two co-founders working at a high level in hedge funds before, we're used to putting together well thought out processes which try to remove any gaps that a regulator might see. So if someone was speaking to us about our market surveillance or our processes or our reconciliations, they're very likely to see a well-rounded process. But there's no magical formula. I think the most important thing in all of it is to approach the regulator, without being arrogant. If you're already a successful business, going to the regulator and saying, "Hey, we're a top 10 crypto exchange, and you should regulate us because you want us in the UK," you're never going to get a good answer. Whereas I think if you approach them and say, "Look, we want to do things the right way. This is our business model. These are the problems we have with the regulation. This is how we think we can do things differently. Perhaps we could do it in the sandbox with a more open-minded approach," I think you're likely to get a lot further, a lot faster. And regulation is hard. Like, we've got applications going on all around the world at the moment: Australia, Singapore, Netherlands, the US, and it's not easy. It's much easier in your home jurisdiction for a start. But it's also not easy because when you take securities and crypto and then you blend them together, the treatment's different globally.
Yeah. And I think it's like what we experience also in the world of payments and regulation, even outside crypto, like in general, like this lack of harmonization makes our life interesting, I would say, to be able to bring businesses global. You have just touched upon actually sandbox. I would be super curious. Have you used it, the regulatory sandbox? What did you use it for, and what was the experience?
Yeah, we didn't. We haven't used it directly ourselves, but DLA Piper, the law firm, did a token issuance on a primary market for our subsidiary company Montis, that's building a digital CSD. So we were involved in that process. I thought it was a good process. It was, ran well. The questions were good. It seems pretty decent. I think the FCA have upgraded or changed their sandbox to be more of an ongoing relationship rather than a cohort relationship. And then at the end of this year, in the financial markets and services bill, or services and markets bill, they've just announced potentially some new powers for HMT, I think, to put together a new FMI sandbox. So we should see another sandbox launching towards the end of the year to start looking at some of the post-trade things that interest us.
That's really interesting. And so, like, to what extent are you on a daily basis, besides your of course, like your regulatory frameworks involved with FCA? Do you have like any, do you get involved in specific associations for lobbying, that type of thing? Like, can you give us like a bit of flavor of your different engagements?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we speak to the FCA quite frequently. We have regular update calls with them. My team has it probably every other week. I think we have calls certainly every month. In the UK, we do a lot of work with. We work with Crypto UK as well, but we've done a lot of work with GDF. We've been a member of GDF since our start and contributed quite a lot to them. And recently been working with UK CBC. So it's kind of a new group that's a little less regulatory focused, let's say, and a little bit more government lobbying focused. And that's been really effective. I think GDF have been working hard, and Crypto UK on the rules and everything. Whereas there's some fundamental things that need to change in the UK economy to make us push forward. And the economic secretary, or at least the recent economic secretary, came out recently and said, look, we want this to be a digital hub of the world. In order for that to really be true, then there's some small things we need to change about the UK. So bank accessibility, for example, some of the stuff about crypto asset that you mentioned earlier, Sophie, in terms of the speed and the scrutiny, and some other bits and pieces around property and tax and everything else that I think we can do to push the UK on a bit faster.
We are actually members as well of Crypto UK and GDF, and we just find the work excellent. It's really good to be able to bring the crypto platforms together to really be these unified voices when it comes to specific consultations.
Yeah, no, it's really good to get people together. Yeah, I think it's good to just make sure there's some focus points, because sometimes as an industry you can get lost in the detail a bit. We haven't been very good at lobbying in the past, so hopefully going forwards, we can have a bit more of a focused message.
Yeah. And that's the way forward, right? So that's really exciting to see everything shaping up, because right now the regulations are coming, and the fact of having this unified voice, really hopefully will bring us to the outcomes we want.
Yeah.
I would like to touch upon a bit your journey during a global pandemic, because you have clearly faced tough circumstances when it comes to setting up the company and growing it. What was it like to grow and set up the company during the pandemic? What did you need to adapt to make it work?
Yes, it's hard. It was hard. On personal level for a lot of people, but you're trying to build something that's different than anyone else has ever done in the world, and that needs collaboration, and you need brain power in a room, and calling someone on Zoom just isn't the same as sitting in the same room as people. And actually, I don't think it's as much as a problem for the more experienced members of the team, but the less experienced members of the team, I feel like they really lost out on a lot of learning. I think a year or two, sitting on the desk next to some of the experienced people, you get to learn a lot. Whereas if you're sat at home and you're reliant on people calling you or participating in team video conferences, then you're missing out on quite a lot. I'm all for flexi working, but I'm a big believer actually that productivity seems a lot higher when everyone's in the office, and I'm sure that for some people and some careers it's better to be at home. But if I just want to spin around in my seat and ask a quick question, or if two of us in the office are talking and someone else joins in, it just feels like it's more collaborative. And the feedback actually from a lot of people, I think, is that being at home is nice every now and then, but actually coming to work and feeling like you're part of something matters quite a bit too. So I think it's changed. It's changed the whole workforce. There's a lot of people out there now that want to be 2-3 days a week at home on a permanent basis. There are some challenges there when we're recruiting, especially developers who are so used to remote working anyway. That still affect us. But thankfully, we've got a pretty strong team. We've because of the work we put into our regulation and because of the loyalty of our investors, we seem to survive quite nicely.
Yeah. And you have raised funds, I believe, during the pandemic as well. Am I right?
Yeah, no, we did. I don't know the exact number over the pandemic, but probably 10 to 15 million, something like that. Pretty good, really. And a lot of those people we'd never met. I mean, we hadn't met some of our employees, but we certainly hadn't met some of our investors. So it was it was quite hard. Simon and I were out there pitching pretty strongly throughout, and like I say, I think thankfully we're in 2021, 22 rather than 2018, where people know digital securities are coming, and Archax has already secured its permissions.
Yeah. And so, what did you feel you had to do differently, maybe like to raise those funds during such a challenging time? Do you think you have approached it in a different way to get those successful fundraise?
Well, if you I don't think we had to change anything, but the what worked out well was that we'd already had conferences before lockdown. We're quite visible on the crypto conference scene. We met a lot of people, and in some ways, those conversations played out over the pandemic. I think if it had gone on much longer, we're doing a Series A right now, and the lead investor is a large asset manager, and I think if we'd have gone into lockdown now, we haven't got so many open conversations to play on with, and cold calling people and starting cold conversations would be a challenge. Whereas if you grab someone at a stand or at a conference, it's just much more effective at getting to that next meeting. So I don't think it really impacted us too much in that way, but that's partly because of the tale of what we've done before.
Yeah. Like it's all about getting back in those meetings in person, whether it's with like the teams or the investors or the clients. We definitely see the benefit of that. Talking about crisis, like I would like to talk about the future of crypto and Archax's role in a post-bear market. What are your thoughts on the bear market? Is the crypto winter setting in? And where does Archax go from here?
I think. Well, I mean, no one likes to lose money, and it's a shame people have. I think there's, there are some clear things in the market that caused all this. Luna seems to have been a big part of the downswing, but I think it was, there was a lot of negativity out there anyway. I think. I don't know. Depending on what you read, DeFi kind of worked. None of the algorithms failed. I guess almost by definition, they always do what they say they're going to do. I don't feel like there's an extended winter coming. I feel like there could be a few more shocks coming, but I don't suspect it will extend the winter much more. I mean, when we were out there speaking to the banks and seeing the projects they're working on, I mentioned earlier there were a couple of banks with over 100 people. Those guys were all working on tokenized real assets, tokenized debt. They're putting together exchange traded products. They're trading crypto. So it doesn't look like all the volume is going. People are realizing it's here to stay. So I think this is just another, it's just another market cycle at the moment. Some people will be cleared out, and those that stay will probably be a bit stronger.
Yeah. So you mentioned like what the institutions were currently doing. You have mentioned you are like currently raising your Series A. What is Archax doing during this bear market? Like, what are you focusing on?
Fundraising's been a big part of it, but we're focusing on collaboration and launching the platform. Speaking to a lot of institutions about tokenizing real world assets. How do we get them on the platform? I mean, regulation still takes up a large part of our day. How do we create these products? How do we create them in a legal and regulatory compliant way? How do we make sure that they can be distributed globally? How do we get them to fit in with the current infrastructure? Which layer ones are doing well? I mean, the space is huge. There's no shortage of things to do, but really on our side, it's, funding and platform has been the focus, and then going forward, it's going to be liquidity and traction.
Okay. So last question for you. Finally, could you give us some thoughts on the journey to DeFi? How will Archax help institutions get exposure to DeFi the Archax way?
Yeah, we're the way our approach is a bit different. We kind of see the DeFi value and we see the future, but we try and operate within what the regs say right now. So, we're looking at liquidity pools, automated market makers, lending protocols, DAOs, and kind of saying, okay, how can this apply to real world assets? especially in the lending space at the moment, actually. So, what you'll see us do probably in the course of the next 6 months is take regulated assets and start to do things with them in DeFi. And most of what happens in DeFi in an institutional way right now means creating a regulatory walled garden to known participants. But what we'll be doing is bringing different types of regulated assets in and trying to use some of the rails that have been built there.
Thank you so much, Graham. You are truly a crypto legend, and it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. Stay tuned for more legendary tales as we bring you those most inspiring stories from the crypto legends of Web3. Crypto Legends is to be continued.